Welcome to Pharmative Live on Facebook Live. I'm Dr. James Partyka. I'm a clinical pharmacist and I'm a research scientist. And I'm also the founder of Pharmative. And Pharmative is part of the PNN Media Group family, which includes a number of brands, including PrideNation.com, Proud TV, KLPS 19, our radio station, PNN.FM, our Club Hits radio station as well, and a number of other products. And I'm just really glad that you're here today for Pharmative Live. This is an interactive session where we take your questions, your text messages. You can send your questions to info@pharmative.com. And this is all about educating ourselves on healthcare issues, healthcare matters, all around the country, and it's my way of trying to convey to all of you some very complicated information in very clear, concise messages, so again that you can make informed decisions with your doctors, your nurses, and your pharmacists. And that's Pharmative.com, and that's Pharmative Live. Now lately, I've been noticing a great deal of activity on all of our programming. Ratings are up, and sometimes the Pride Nation radio through the PNN Plus mobile app is getting overloaded. Our mixing boards are overloaded with all the ratings. And I just want to kind of clearly indicate to all of you that in the mobile app, if the first Pride Nation radio button that you hit doesn't work, you can always access PNN.FM through the second button, which is about DJs and programming shows, or type in PNN.FM into your web browser, and you can access Pride Nation Radio always through iTunes as well. So you can either type in PNN.FM into a web browser, you can go through your mobile phone, PNN.FM, and you get a user-friendly mobile-friendly app to play the same music stream. And you can also always ask Alexa, please play Pride Nation Radio. So technology and all the platforms we have, as much as I love it, it always has a few little bugs in it, and things are changing, and we're hoping to expand our broad bandwidth to be able to provide you that music always 24/7. And not only is it great dance music, it's also great workout music as well. And with that, I'll also just make an announcement towards PNN Plus Health mobile app, which not only has some of the favorite music and news and retro TV and cartoon TV, as well as our online magazine, PrideNation.com, also PNN.one. It also now has lots of formative and healthcare resources and tools that I think you will find extraordinarily valuable in trying to answer some of your questions regarding healthcare here, as well as information about medications and appropriate usage and disease states and so forth. Again, it's very complicated, but we all have to take control and responsibility, again, for accessing the best information we can. So I selected with my formative care team and with my PNN media team here, I selected the best resources and tools for you, which include not only formative, but also a doctor symptom checker, which is a chat bot, which will ask you various questions about symptoms that you're experiencing and give you a differential diagnosis, which again you can discuss with your clinician, your pharmacist, on how best to proceed forward. There's also a virtual pharmacy or virtual pharmacia with everything you needed to know, with information streamed in directly from the FDA about appropriate dosage, appropriate usage, side effects. There's a pill identifier there, and there's a drug interaction tool. And we talked a little bit about that last week when we were talking about aspirin. It's really important, at least once or twice a year, that you put all of your medications into that drug interaction tool, see what it says, look at the moderate to severe interactions, and then discuss it with your medication experts, the pharmacists, which you have 24/7 access to, but also your prescriber as well, up to the significance. Oftentimes, medications can be substituted to minimize the risk of drug interactions. I did receive a question through info@pharmative.com last week about, well, what exactly is a drug interaction? I mean, we hear everybody say it. And I think the easiest and clearest way to inform all of you here today about drug interactions is just remember, when you're taking more than one drug at the same time, those drugs share the bloodstream, share the tissues of your body, and when one drug is in the presence of another drug, it may affect the safety or efficacy of that drug or the other drug. So drug interactions, there are quite many of them. They can increase the efficacy, they can increase the risk and severity of adverse events, and oftentimes they can be prevented. And so if you're receiving medications not only by your choice at the pharmacy through over-the-counter medications or through a prescriber, or from one doctor to another doctor or a hospital to a clinic, if you go to different pharmacies, there's not one database that has all of your medications unless you are completely accurate with telling your primary physician what those medications are, not only the prescription medications, but the over-the-counter medications as well. You enter those into a computer, and there are so many drug interactions, one single individual. We can know some of the major ones, but in order for us to be on top of this, we have to use computer assistant tools to tell us exactly what might or might not be going on with a particular interaction for a particular patient. So again, it's really important that you look at resource tools to help you determine that for you and your loved ones. And again, you can go into your PNN Plus Health mobile app, go to the virtual pharmacy, select drug interactions, enter your medications, press enter, and it will tell you what drug interactions you have. And then I would take that information to appropriately assess it with your pharmacist, who really are the drug medication experts. So that's the question that I received from Bill last week on what exactly is a drug interaction. And we hear that term all the time, and it really just comes back to one drug affecting the safety or efficacy of another drug, because there's some kind of interaction going on either with the metabolism, the excretion, the distribution, or the protein binding of these two drugs. See, one prop is new, but guess what? This prop will be refastened later on for another date. So that's the wonder about having a live broadcasting series, which I actually really enjoy because it really makes you want to focus and clearly deliver the appropriate information and messages to all of you here today. I might remind you, we are streaming live from our digital recording studios, PNN Digital Recording Studios in Palm Springs, California. And we do this every week on Sunday mornings at 10:55 Pacific Coast time. And I look forward to it every week because it's my time to be able to interact with you on the live platform. And then we have various other platforms that we will add subtitles, we will have an instant replay, and we'll do a watch party, again, so that the information is clearly disseminated. And again, you can always text me at info@pharmative.com. So before we begin part 2 of our part 3 series on over-the-counter pain relief medicines, I'm going to make an announcement, as I usually do anyways, and that announcement is one of disclosures. So here at Pharmative, we do our best to indicate to you any kind of disclaimers or disclosures and so forth. Last week I talked about we never take your credit card number because we never charge for our programming, whether it's news, entertainment, or whether it's healthcare news and insights. And we receive our monies through paid advertisements that are carefully placed throughout our various platforms, whether that's on our Chromecast, Roku, streaming television and radio station, through Apple or Android mobile apps, through our online magazines, or through social media. Our advertisements are clearly marked advertisements. Our information is marked where the sources are providing that information from. So it's coming from Pharmative, and it's something that either I wrote or one of my team members wrote. We do our best to make sure that information is fair balanced, and we market that this is from Pharmative. If the information is coming from a resource like National Institutes of Health or through a scientific journal like the New England Journal of Medicine, then we will clearly indicate the sources. And then with regard to paid advertisements, that's exactly the same way we would do. It will state this is an advertisement, a paid advertisement. So you know exactly what is a paid commercial or infomercial versus what is content provided from PNN Media Group, which has a number of brands, including Pharmative, under the big umbrella of PNN.1. So again, I know that it's always kind of confusing, but it's really important when, especially on the internet, when you're receiving lots of information and pop-up ads, and when you're receiving information through various advertisements, which can be misleading or so forth, it's really important to understand who is posting this information. What is the source? Am I familiar with this news outlet or magazine or so forth? Who wrote the article? What was the date of the article? And as my mother would often say to me, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. So as you all know, it's definitely in the news today about what is accurate and factual versus what is exaggerated, is distorted through either manipulating videos or manipulating the facts and not telling you the whole truth and the whole story. So that was one thing I wanted to kind of stress to you, that we're going to always do our best to answer your questions and disclose any types of conflicts of interest, financial interests, disclaimers, as best as we can moving forward in all of our multimedia platforms. That includes YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. That also includes Roku and Chromecast and Apple and Android, through our streaming network throughout not only the United States but the world. And I'll brag a little bit that PNN.FM is the #1 LGBTQ dance music station in the country. So who would have thought, broadcasting from Palm Springs and having DJs submit original mixes and programming, that PNN.FM would be so successful. But it is, because as we all know, terrestrial radio is going away, and everything is really now happening on streaming internet services, on demand, 24/7, that you're able to individualize your program of what you're interested to. Now, following up on that disclaimer and that announcement, I want to also make it all clear that Pharmative does not accept paid advertisements from pharmaceutical industry companies. And Pharmative does its best to provide information in a fair, balanced manner to all of you in clear, concise messages. Okay, and Pharmative stands for really Informative Pharmacy, of which I am a clinical pharmacist and a research scientist, and I want to inform you about healthcare matters through the platform, a positive platform called Pharmative.com. Now, there's also an important point to that is I have another daytime job, and I work for a biotech company that is actually based out of Paris, and our U.S. headquarters is based in North America, and I work on cancer research for them as well. But I try to separate the two, and I try not to discuss any type of research that we're currently conducting through my daytime company that I work for as well. So again, I try and do my best to make it fair balance, make it objective. I try not to promote and support products like that are over the counter and so forth. So I don't receive any monies for promoting any brand name products that you are familiar with. I work towards developing and providing information regarding our clinical development plan that we have at our company and our company goals in cancer research. And it doesn't really affect, again, we all have biases. It doesn't really I try not to allow it to affect my opinions. Of course, I'm human, I have opinions. So the next part, before we go into part 2 of our over-the-counter analgesics, I just want to also say something as the editor of Pharmative with regard to health, the health of our economy and the health of America and the health of our American democracy. And although I'm very active writing about different opinions with regards to American politics, sometimes it's better just to kind of say, hey, look you in the eye through a camera and tell you that Pride Nation and PNN Media Group, and therefore Pharmative, we support the Democratic nominee for the 2020 election. And no matter who that Democratic nominee, and we have so many great and talented people out there that are bright, energetic, have visions for where they want to take this country. I'm impressed with almost all of them, and I will support 110% PNN Media, Pride Nation, Pharmative, and all of our brands will support the Democratic nominee. And I wanted to make that perfectly clear as well, because sometimes politics influence healthcare in this country, and healthcare is one of my primary goals. How can we improve the efficiency of delivering healthcare? How can we reduce the costs? And how can we increase the access so that everybody has healthcare? Healthcare really, in my opinion, is a human right, and that's part of this show. And so I try to say to you, you have a choice between a generic versus a brand. Always go with a generic drug, which is least costly, unless sometimes maybe it's not, but go with the least costly drug, unless otherwise told by your pharmacist or your prescriber. So again, it's really a passion of mine and a mission of mine to improve the healthcare system and to increase access to healthcare. So when you are making your political choice and your decisions, ask, what is your alternative to our existing health care plan, and how is it going to help me and my family? The Democratic Party has many different options, from single payer, often referred to as universal health care, to improving Obamacare, to giving a choice between private health care insurance and a public option. That's what the Democratic Party stands for. I don't know what the Republican Party stands for, because they have not disclosed what they want to do with providing access to health care. All they do is want to dismantle Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act. But in the past 4 to 6 years, I have no clue, and I read a lot, what they would replace it for. I think that's a really huge topic for discussion and something you should think about when making a decision about who you're going to vote for. Okay, so that's one point, one political point. The second political point that I wanted to make with regard to all of this is, it's quite clear to me that the Republican Party are not completely telling you the truth. They're misrepresenting the facts. They're misleading you. And when they discount what has been factually determined, that the Russians and other foreign countries have interfered with the 2016 election, and they're currently doing it now, and they're doing it with the cooperation of the GOP, the Republican Party, and they're not addressing that issue. They're not addressing that issue with increased security measures to ensure that our elections in America are fair and they're not being rigged. That is a huge problem. So I would challenge, and I've written about this, but sometimes you just have to go on air and talk about it. I would challenge anyone who said that the Russians did not interfere with our elections, because 16 of our government agencies have decisively concluded that they did and are doing so today. So if you have a relationship with a Republican senator, congressman, a neighbor, a GOP corporate business owner, ask him, what are we doing? Why are we not working together to secure our free elections? This is not Russia, where the elections are rigged. This is America. This is American democracy. And when these Republicans go on television and they don't completely tell you the truth, or they skirt the issue and they don't directly answer the questions, what are they hiding? What's wrong with having a free society with secure democratic elections? Are they afraid of losing their power? Are they afraid of losing their base? Are they afraid if they don't manipulate the numbers and the facts in their favor, they're going to lose? They're going to lose their gerrymandering districts? So it really comes down to a few things. It really comes down to power, self-interests. It comes down to racism, and it comes down to trying to cheat and rig the election. And as far as I'm concerned, if you read everything about the Mueller report, and with regard to the impeachment of Donald J. Trump, they are cheating and rigging our elections today. And every patriot out there needs to speak up and say, no. I want secure and fair elections in this country, and I need to go out and vote and educate people why I'm voting for a Democrat. And if you're going to vote for a Republican, why am I going to vote for a Republican? Are you better off today than you were 4 years ago? Do you pay less taxes? Do you have more pay coming to you? Do you have a better job? Do you have access to health care? This is America. This is not Russia. So please, I take a risk being publicly vocal. I travel a lot. I just came back from Boston and a trip from Los Angeles. And every time I feel it's important to, in a productive way, without getting too emotional, to talk about the facts. Oftentimes what I find the other party is skirting the issue, lying about the issue, and not talking about the facts. So that's all about the first part of today. It was all about the health of our democracy and improving the access to health care in this country, which is the most important issue that we have today to talk about when we select a candidate. So I challenge those Republicans out there. What are you going to do about health care? What's your plan? If you think Obamacare is so bad, why? And what are you going to do about it? Because everybody deserves access to quality health care. And right now in America, our system is completely broken. And so that's a topic for another time. And now I'm going to talk to you about part 2. Today we're going to talk about Tylenol. And I'm actually going to make this very brief because last time, part 1, and if you haven't seen part 1, you need to either obtain it through Pharmative or YouTube or through our Facebook pages. was all about non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs and aspirin. It talks about the benefits, the risks, and the costs. And if you compare the 4 buckets that we talked about last time, Tylenol was in the first bucket. The generic name is acetaminophen. The brand name is Tylenol. But there are many products that contain acetamin under different brand names. The second bucket was aspirin. And that was part of a group called non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs. And the third was steroids, of which topical hydrocortisone is available over the counter. Other steroids like dexamethasone and prednisone require a prescription because of their long-term side effects. Topical hydrocortisone is very safe and very effective at relieving itchiness and redness associated with various reactions. And then the fourth bucket was the topical lidocaines and the benzocaines, which are really helpful in attacking and numbing up localized pain, whether it's back pain or whether it's pain associated with teething or a mouth sore and so forth. So those are the 4 buckets. And once you understand the 4 buckets, then you can kind of compare and contrast the safety and efficacy profile. And understand when would I choose, acetaminophen, Tylenol, over an aspirin or over other NSAIDs available over the counter like ibuprofen versus topicals and so forth. So that's the best way to think about it, so it's not so confusing, because there's so many brand names out there. There's so many colored boxes and information and so forth. But if we think in terms of the pharmacological class and then the efficacy and safety, what it does well versus what it doesn't do so well, side effects and the cost, then you can make an informed decision with your pharmacist and your prescriber about the medicines for you and your family. So last week, part 1, we talked all about aspirin. So if you haven't seen it, there's some interesting little, what we say in medical science and pharmacy is clinical pearls, little interesting factoids about the development of various drugs over time, and little clinical pearls about the usage of medicines, and that's all in part 1. In part 2, we're going to talk about Tylenol, and we're going to compare it to the non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs. Tylenol, generic name acetaminophen, chemical abbreviation, which is still quite commonly used, is APAP, APAP. Okay, remember last time we talked about aspirin was ASA, acetylsalicylic acid. So we have APAP and we have ASA. And I don't think that you really necessarily have to remember APAP, but it is commonly used still to this day, but acetaminophen for sure. Remember clearly the efficacy and the indications is to reduce pain and fever of Tylenol. Comparing that to the NSAIDs, Tylenol does not have anti-inflammatory properties. So if you have pain associated with inflammation, like arthritis or back pain, an NSAID might be a better choice for you, might be more effective at relieving your pain, all right? But it is a very effective drug in reducing pain and fever. Now, if we compare this also to aspirin, or aspirin in particular, we don't administer aspirin to children and teenagers, especially if they have fevers, because there is a risk of developing Reyes syndrome. And if you don't know what that is, go to your PNM Plus Health app and look that up through Trending Health, which is information provided to you by the National Institutes of Health. So again, Tylenol for children and teenagers to reduce their pain and fever is one of the drugs of choice for that indication, for that patient population. All right. I always say buy generic unless there's a specific reason not to. There's lots of different dosage forms, from elixirs to syrups to capsules to tablets to different combination of agents, and generally speaking, the generic is just as good as the brand. Now, Tylenol does not have those other two properties that aspirin has that we talked about last time. Tylenol does not affect platelet function, therefore it's not used to reduce the risk of cardiovascular events. And Tylenol does not have that anti-cancer property that we talked about in reducing your risk of developing colorectal cancer, right? And Tylenol does not reduce inflammation because it works in a different way than that of aspirin. So it's important, again, to just know that. We're talking about reduction in pain and fever. But it is a very good drug, and it's a very safe drug. And it doesn't have a lot of those drug interactions that we talked about with aspirin. That doesn't mean that it doesn't have drug interactions. And if you're curious, you can go to your drug interactions tool on the PNN Plus Health mobile app under virtual pharmacy, and you can find out for yourself if you should or shouldn't be taking it with some of the medicines that you're already taking. There are a lot of combination products out there. You are probably very familiar with Excedrin, and Excedrin is a combination product of Tylenol, acetaminophen with aspirin with caffeine. It's very effective at reducing tension headaches or pain associated with, tension and muscle spasms, and it's very good with migraines as well. Now, one of my precautionary statements would be you have to be careful about combination products. And sometimes I feel it's best to have single agents medicines available in your dry storage locked area in your home and take the medicines that you need based upon your symptoms. So if you're having pain, you take a pain relief medicine. If you're having a cough, you take a cough medicine. Dextromethorphan is most commonly recommended, or an expectorant like Robitussin, guanifacin, which I think I mispronounced that one, so I'll have to edit that out. But Robitussin, the original Robitussin, guaifenesin, that's it, guaifenesin. Anyways, which is an expectorant. If you need a decongestant, there's a number of them available over the counter. Phenylephrine is a common one, and then something available behind the counter, pseudoephedrine, is both of them very commonly used decongestants. And then to dry up secretions and to prevent allergies, an antihistamine like citrazine or Benadryl, diphenhydramine. And there's a number of antihistamines available. So that would allow you, if you had single agents of all these generic drugs, you to treat your symptoms by selecting the right drug, as opposed to the convenience of a combination product. And if you look at the back, like especially for cough and flu medicines, they generally either contain aspirin or acetaminophen or ibuprofen, an antihistamine, a decongestant, and perhaps a cough suppressant, okay? And it's convenient to take one pill to treat your cough and cold symptoms. However, and this is what I'm going to caution to you about acetaminophen, it's very important that you track your daily dosage of acetaminophen. And it's also important to note that in adults, you are not to exceed 400 milligrams per day. And if you do that, you're increasing your risk of developing life-threatening hepatotoxicity, liver toxicity. So if you're taking Excedrin and you're taking cough and cold medicines, and you may take more Excedrin than you're supposed to, or you may take generic Tylenol, and you're not tracking all of that, the average dose of acetaminophen is 500 milligrams, right? So 500 plus 500 is already 1,000. You're 25% to that 4,000 milligram maximum daily dose. You're not to go above that. And if you're a child, there are specific dose limitations for them as well. So read the prescribing information and how to take it on the back of the package, or go to drugs.com, which can be accessed through your PNN Plus Health mobile app through the virtual pharmacy, and find out what the right dose is for your child at their body weight. Okay, so one of the things, and I talked a little bit about this last year, is when you think acetaminophen, think liver toxicity, do not exceed, as an adult, the maximum dosage per day of 4,000 milligrams, because you have a chance of life-threatening hepatotoxicity. And people have died of that. So if you suspect, and these are the signs and symptoms of patients with too much Tylenol: diarrhea, nausea, vomiting, that's vague, but an increase in sweating, a loss of weight, stomach cramps, and a tender abdomen. Okay. Again, parents should be watching their teenagers and watching their children on how much Tylenol they're taking. And if you suspect that there was an accidental overdose, you want to go immediately to an emergency room, because there are antidotes to reverse the toxic effects of acetaminophen on the liver. You also, while you're going to an emergency room, calling the Poison Control Center number that I gave to you last week, which is 1-800-222-1222. Again, that's 1-800-222-1222, and that's a service provided to you by the state of California. You can call that Poison Control Center number if there's any kind of accidental overdosage of medicine or chemical household products that are in your home or workplace and so forth. Call that number, because oftentimes there's specific protocols for handling accidental ingestion and overdosage, not only of medications, but also of household products. Right. Now, I might want to say also, so again, just to reemphasize this point, if you're taking single agent acetaminophen for pain or fever, all right, and you're also taking combination products for different reasons, you really have to be careful of the daily dosage. Do not exceed 4,000 milligrams. And for kids, look up in the prescribing information, directions for use, what the appropriate dosage is for the child and the weight of the child that you're administering the medicine to. Again, medicines are taken only when needed for a clear benefit. We also have to understand the risks, and at Pharmative, we always discuss the benefits versus the risks versus the costs. So again, last time with aspirin, we have generic acetaminophen, generic Tylenol, so the costs are minimal. There's not much advantage with going with a fancy formulation or fancy brand name products. Generic works just as well. The benefit with acetaminophen is clearly reduction of pain and fever. It does that quite well. It has a warning of liver toxicity, which can be fatal. The maximum dose in adults is 4,000 milligrams. Got to get that right, 4,000 milligrams. And again, there are other side effects associated with Tylenol: skin rash, hives, black tarry stools, severe skin reactions. It can cause some lung problems, manifested as dyspnea and cough. It can lower blood pressure. It can lower potassium and increase your blood sugar levels. It can cause some insomnia, anxiety, and it can also cause some edema and changes in your blood pressure. So that's the most common side effects. If you need a complete list of side effects, which I encourage you to do, go to drugs.com and look up acetaminophen, or look on the back of the labeling associated with the product that you purchased. And that's what you need to know about Tylenol. It's a commonly used drug. It's very effective. It does have some side effects. And when you think of Tylenol, acetaminophen, Tylenol, it ends in L. L reminds you of liver toxicity. And remember, there's a poison control center just with dialing 800-222-1222. So that's part 2 of our series, and then next week we'll talk about part 3. And as I sign off, I always sign off by saying, stay healthy. It's easier to stay healthy than to treat disease. It's easier to prevent disease than to treat disease. And the best thing that you can do for you and your family is to stay healthy. So with that, I'll see you next time. I'm Dr. James Partyka, Pharmative Live, every Sunday. I always say, eat some pancakes, say some prayers, and then come back and love Pharmative Live every Sunday morning at 10:55 Pacific Coast Time. That's all I have for today. I'll see you next week, and again, stay healthy.